Welcome to My Two Cents, a community where we ask Aussie marketers 3 simple questions each month on a topic of their choice. This episode, we're diving into the OG of digital marketing, email, and what role it plays for Aussie marketers as part of their overall marketing strategy. This is part B as we dig into the topic of email marketing. If you haven't listened to part A, we talked with fractional sales leader Zach King. He shared his effective outbound email approach, which he uses with clients. Definitely worth a listen. For today's show, we're bringing in a couple of experts. I'm your host, Chris Jowsey, fractional CMO with Nugget Digital. My co-host, Denise Rainey, fellow fractional CMO with Rainy Day Digital. And we're joined by a special guest, Christian Young. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Hi, Christian.
Hi, Denise.
Christian's
Hi,
the
Chris.
founder of Lord Howe Island Distilling Co., the multi-award-winning distillers of some of Australia's finest gin and boutique beers, and recently the board director of the Australian Distillers Association. Prior to this, Christian has had a long career in product marketing with some of the biggest names in tech and telco. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you.
Now, before we start, I think I'll let everyone in that, Denise and I and yourself worked together many moons ago back at Dell in the marketing space. And I guess we've crossed paths many times over the years. But yeah, I think more interestingly, in the last, 5 to 10 years, you've kind of made the big decision to jump ship and set up your own distilling business, which has taken a really interesting path. I think a lot of people have that dream of, chucking in the corporate job and setting up a boutique brewery or a winery. And I guess, yeah, you're one of the lucky ones, I guess, that's decided to actually do it. So, yeah, I guess before we start, what was the original impetus to not just dream about it, but actually have a crack?
Well, actually, I just want to go back and correct one thing in that definitely a founder, but I'm a co-founder. So I'm in business with my business partner, Anthony Riddle. I'm a Sydney-sider born and bred, 5 convicts in the family tree. Anthony is a 6th-generation Lord Howe Islander, and his 6 times great-grandfather was an American whaler and settled on the island in the 1850s. So my grandfather took myself and about 30 of my family over to the island every year for about a month, which was during summer, which was just an amazing existence. And during that time, we got to know many friends, both tourists and islanders. And sadly, when they passed away, no one's taking you up to the island anymore each year, and life moves on. And it was only my wife, Sharon, who said, "I am sick to death of when your family get together. They talk about Blinky Beach this and Mount Gower that. I want to go to Lord Howe." And so I went, righto, let's go to Lord Howe. No kids. We'll go back. And just, I was amazed at the time that life had moved on, but had not moved on the island. It is a place that is in one way stuck in time, which is great. And I looked around simply and it was actually Sharon, within about an hour of landing on the island, she punches me in the arm and said, "I cannot believe you've been keeping this a secret." So after 20 years, of not going, we went back, and I met up with my good friend Anthony and looked around, and I just saw everyone drinking Bombay Sapphire and Gordon's Gin and Asahi and Tui's New, and I just marveled, being the product manager, product marketer brain that I am, that we're on arguably the most iconic island in the world, and just simply said, I think we can do better. So the beauty of the island is that there's 114 botanicals on Lord Howe that don't occur anywhere else on the planet. So when you're looking at spirits, for example, in particular, and gin, to put a fine point on it, it is all about the botanical and what is different, what is unique, what flavor are you adding to that blank canvas. And fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have 40,000 years of Aboriginal bush tucker to lean on. The island was only found in 1788. It was the HMS Supply, one of the first fleet, that dropped off the convicts in Sydney and then was turned around 2 weeks later and sent up to Norfolk Island to go and set up the penal colony for the worst of the worst criminals. And on the way up, they saw this island and it was not on any chart. So what they found was it had never been settled. There's not a human footprint on it. No Aboriginal, no Maori, no Pacifica, not a human footprint ever. So it is true terra nullius. And what we have is an amazing variety of botanicals that they're still finding new ones up the top of these enormous mountains. And the last one they found was only new one they found was only 7 years ago. So it's not like they found everything, 150 years ago. They're still finding new botanicals. Now, some of them we're not going to be able to use. They might be more on the sort of poisonous side, or great for skincare or lip balm or something like that. But on the edible side, and what's great for beverages, we're putting through mass spectrometer testing through Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, as well as working with universities to test these so that we can use them. Some of them are cousins of botanicals we'll find in Australia on the mainland or in New Zealand or New Caledonia. One of them is the Lord Howe Island banyan tree, which is a fig, and very close relative to the Port Jackson or Moreton Bay fig that you find in Sydney or Queensland. So an enormous amount, a range of botanicals that we're only just getting started on. And that's really the basis of how it all came about. And giving up the old life of marketing and telco and that sort of thing, it was really a case of, and when we were working together, you've got to be great at pricing. You've got to be great at supply demand. You've got to be great at product and looking at side by side in the market and who am I pitching this at? What's the packaging like? How am I presenting it online? And so when you take all of that, you go, well, I've got a great product and I'm pulling all of these skills together to be able to do that 365 days a year, showcasing what I consider, a lot of people consider to be one of the treasures on the of the world. UNESCO World Heritage, 400 tourist beds on the island at any one time, and just again going back to those unique botanicals, it's a really unique selling proposition.
Tell us how email, like how email has become an important part of your business. Have you, did you start out with email, or is that something that you added, once you got the brand and your product in the market?
So email, obviously, we're all Dell background, and one of Dell's strongest points was that direct relationship with customers. And I think a lot of that has transferred into this business. And I would suggest anyone in a food and beverage business, because when particularly in beverage, when you look at Endeavour Group, so you're either selling direct or you're going through a channel. You're going through distribution. And then that distribution can either be wholesale or could be retail. So when you're in beverage, you're dealing with, if you want to be in 51% of the retail stores in Australia, then you have to be with Endeavour, and that means Dan Murphy's and BWS. So that's 51%. So if you're not with them, you've given half the market away. So on top of that, you've got Liquorland and you've got IGA Liquor and all of these sorts of things. But you pretty much need to be offering or giving that distributor or that retailer 30% margin. You need to be showing them more than 30% margin for you to be interesting, and you need all of your pricing to cascade considering that. When you're talking about a $100 bottle, you take off your GST. And by the way, most alcohol bottles that gin bottles or vodka or that sort of thing, they're not $100. That's right at the very tip of it. But let's just use 100 for the moment. Take off your GST, you're at about 91. Take off your 30% margin, and you're at 60. Take off your excise, and that's about $30 a bottle. So now you're at $30. So you've then got your on costs of your bottle, your label, your labor, your closure. Pretty soon you can see your margins just being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. So and that's at $100. No one's selling their bottles at $100. You're typically around $70 to $80 roughly. So you can see that margin squeezes and squeezes. Now, Denise, your question was, has it always been a part? Absolutely, right from day one. How do we create a direct relationship with our customers to be able to go back to them and sell directly to them ongoing? Because 100% of that profit is now mine. I don't need to go through a distributor. I don't need to go through a retailer or a reseller. It's horses for courses. If you're down at Dan's and you want something for a gift for mum or that sort of thing, it's an impulse buy. Absolutely. I'm in the zone. I'm in the area. I'm going to swing past and grab a bottle. But if there's forethought, or if there's your subscription services and those sorts of things, you get a direct conversation with your customers. You can update them on new products directly. You can update them in, hey, we've just built a distillery on a UNESCO World Heritage Island. That wasn't on day number one. We did that 3 years, 4 years after we started. We're 6 years into this journey now. So back to your original question, has it been important? Absolutely. Yes, have leaned on that maniacal sense in the tech world of having that direct relationship in a Dell fashion. Definitely. And the positive of that is that you get to keep all of your net profit.
But you also did some interesting things during COVID and some interesting sort of like niche marketing exercises. And I think that, I guess I've followed your journey, but for me, that was when I realized that, you were really building up a following and that, people were starting to take notice of what you were doing. Tell us a little bit more about that and how that's kind of played out as you've gone further down this path.
It's a great question. We have our Lord Howe Island branded business where it's all about Lord Howe Island, the botanicals and our brand and our logo, etc. And then in any typical distiller or brewer's business, you've got contract. So someone comes to you and says, hey, I'd like to do a beer for my rugby club, or I'd like to produce a gin for my school that's turning 150 years old. So we set up a business called Craft Foundry. And Craft Foundry does small bespoke beverage projects, call it. During COVID, it was really at the beginning of that. During COVID was a lot of pain, but also it was a little bit of fun as well, in that everyone was locked down in their houses. No one was having much fun. And yes, there was a lot of email marketing happening because alcohol, luckily in Australia, was an essential business, not in other countries. And so we could deliver to our customers, in a safe way. What I did, we were all locked down, not having much fun. I jumped on our local Facebook page of about 4,000 people and said, hey, it's Christian from the Hood. I'm also a distiller. Would anyone be interested in a local gin using local botanicals from, we actually have a food forest here in my local suburb, and we would give back, and we'd use some botanicals from the local food forest, and we'd actually give back to a charity. And the response was insane. It was incredible. We ended up selling more than 600 bottles to my suburb alone. And what we did is, because everyone was locked up in their houses, I did a couple of test recipes. And then I said, who would like to be part of the project in a tasting capacity? And so I did 2 test recipes. We got 8 people as a working group. I dropped off in a very safe fashion around to everyone's front door. Everyone jumped on a Zoom call and we were tasting a gin and tonic all together and getting tasting feedback notes. Is it too citrusy? Is it too sweet? Is it too, that sort of thing? And in the end, the working group decided which recipe we would take to market. So the suburb is Annandale in the inner west in Sydney, and we decided to call it Ginandale. And it was amazingly supported by the community, and we gave a very large check back to the Friends of Whites Creek, and they take care of the food forest so that kids can walk down after school and grab a strawberry or some mulberries off the tree and that sort of thing.
It's amazing. I love that story. And how is that kind of, how have you managed to retain, I guess, some of those sentiments about being close to your customers and, even to the extent that you involve them in your product development? How have you continued that as, you've scaled up and become bigger, award-winning business?
So on the side of Craft Foundry, I think we do a really good job and it all we always give back. We use, like the kids bring home a Cadbury's chocolate box and you put your $2 coin in, and rugby clubs or surf clubs raise money that way. We just do it with gin. You get to, the club gets to do, or the university or whoever we're talking to gets to design the label. So there's that one-on-one action. So there's a piece of them on the label. And then what we do is where we can, we use botanicals from that area as well. So it might be strawberry gum and finger lime. And if they're a surf club near the ocean, it might be saltbush, for example. Other cases, we go onto the property or onto the school grounds or onto the university and pick rose petals from the school and actually use those in the distill. So you're literally drinking club spirit. So that's another part of that personalization, which is really important. And you'll remember from those old Dell days or Lenovo, etc., that personalization is the key. That experience and personalization is what helps you to cut through.
So, Christian, these days things have moved on. Back in the day, all we really cared about was open rates, and we'd hang our hat on our open rates. Those days have gone. What are the metrics that you care about now?
Care about sales. Open rates obviously mean nothing if it's not converting. Now, I think Chris might have some examples of some of our emails coming up, but please don't look to us as a mecca of here's what you should do or should not do. But what is an important metric is what's important to have to get the right outcome is the right product. New product introduction or new product development is really important. Oh, please.
Here we go.
Obviously, cash off or percentage off is a really big driver. We tend to, because we are more on the premium end, because of our UNESCO World Heritage status, and it does cost more to ship stuff over to the island, produce it, and then get it off the island as well. So we have more cost than probably most distillers in Australia, but certainly one of the triggers is that percentage or cash off. But you can't do that every day of the week, because obviously that is your margin. So how do you build in other value positions? So it might be keeping it at full price, but you get two amazing lead crystal gin balloons or something like that to drink from. Or it might be a great Yeti tumbler to go camping and have a gin and tonic, and that way. But certainly you do need to do your research when you're adding value and those additional add-ons if you are looking to maintain your price point as well. And the other thing is also you don't want to go, as we know with Dell and any company, you don't want to damage your price in market, because that just pisses a whole lot of retailers and distributors off. So yes, cash off, price off, dollars off works throughout the year, but don't do it too often. Try and build more value into the for the customer.
Yeah, and I think, like you've already gone through, a big part of what you are offering is the story, right? The history, the connection to Lord Howe, and I'd imagine you got this opportunity to keep sharing those, whether it's those experiences or how it's evolving in different products. I guess that's also got to be a big part of it.
Absolutely. So I'll just draw your attention to the middle one there, with the pre-ordered Dark Sky. Dark Sky is a movement or a I don't know what you'd call it. It's an event that is done all around the world, and they do it in areas where there's low amounts or no amount of man-made light going up into the atmosphere. So places like Lapland, deepest, darkest, New Zealand, and then obviously Lord Howe Island, which has a population of 380 full time and 400 tourists at any one time. There's very little light going up. So you can go and see the Milky Way just light up in front of you. It is absolutely incredible. And so the Dark Sky Festival was done for the first time. There was a government grant given to the island, and one of the islanders, residents of the island, decided to let's mobilize this, and everyone got on board, and it was a fantastic festival. There was dark dining, so blindfold in the dark and start eating, and you had your cocktail and all that sort of thing. We decided, and they had people from cosmologists and people from NASA and all of these sorts of people there, which was great to listen to if you were, on the island. But what we decided to do was, that inky deep purple after sunset that you get, and just as you're transitioning to to nighttime. And we did a purple gin, a deep purple gin. And what we did is put edible silver leaf in the bottle, and that broke apart into little pieces, and it was like stars glinting in the night sky. And then you can see there that the label on the back, it was actually clear, and the label on the back, the island mountains there. As the level of gin goes down, then it reveals the mountains, and you've got a great sort of keepsake on the shelf as well. That was an example of new product introduction, something really quite cool, tie in with an event, and was in every bar on the island, and was really liked. Short run, really unique product, and was on pre-order so that we knew how much we were going to make prior to actually going to market.
It's a really cool idea and such a gorgeous product. Are those kind of events and tie-ins, is that typically like a segue for you to start building your email list?
I think the short answer is yes. Have we done it in the best possible way in the past? I don't think we've lived life to the fullest in that regard, but absolutely, it is an amazing way to go and build databases and lists. We've done it very successfully probably about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and that was with a competition. People love competitions. We ran it on Facebook. We got about 4,000 people sign up for a competition for basically a basket hamper of gin, and things have just run on from there. So a great way to build databases is with competitions. You need the right platform with the right messaging, and also the right carrot to dangle to get people interested.
And I guess too, when you have things like, your dark sky gin, which is so very special, that it's possible that, you have people in your database who might not buy anything from month to month or year to year, but they'll see something like that will resonate and go, this is my splurge, or that would make the most awesome gift for, whoever in your life. Is it true to say that there are people who are engaged and want to keep in touch with your business, and that something like, these special products will resonate with them, and then you'll get that sale?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously with our background working for that IT company, data was king. You had to have a really good handle on data. I have not spent enough time in the data, but the little pieces of gold that I've pulled out, or a nugget, if you will, you like that, is having a look at those different customers. And some of our customers have ordered 8, 12, 15 bottles over a period of sort of 5 years. And they are your rusted on, champion customers. And then there are other ones that have purchased something in Craft Foundry, and that was specifically for their club or their university and that sort of thing. Maybe that's just, that was enough of a resonance for them, and then they're good after that. So it's definitely horses for courses, but I would absolutely love to spend more time in the weeds, in the detail, but sadly, it's just not enough hours in the day.
When you're wearing all those different hats, it's hard to spend a good chunk of time on your own marketing, for sure.
It is.
I keep thinking whenever, as we're going through and you've got all those great stories of whether it's the products you've developed or the history, I keep thinking this is just as much of a sell for Lord Howe, the island, isn't it, really, as it is for the product? You must come across that a lot, whether it's, hey, you've really encouraged me to go and visit the island. How much of the crossover is there?
For me, there's a hell of a lot of crossover. Obviously, growing up on the island with your family, with your extended family, they are core memories. And the only thing that I want is that how I came into this is just to showcase the island. It was as simple as that. For Anthony's born and bred. He lives on the island. He works on the island. Parents, grandparents, they all lived on the island. So he's a part of the fabric of the Lord Howe Island community. And our mission was to simply showcase the island. And there's a bit of a balance there because it's so special and it's so untouched and all that sort of thing. And you go, well, we don't want everyone to know about it because then everyone will go. But there's a really handy cap on tourist beds, which is mandated by the Lord Howe Island Act. So we're part of New South Wales, but also run a little bit separately in a lot of cases. And part of that is this cap on beds. So making sure that it is special now and it will stay special for the next 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. So yes, it's special, but we really, really want to showcase it. And it's such a unique selling proposition that we have that really no one else in Australia almost has.
Yeah, and just, I guess, when we think about email, I think a lot of the benefit people would necessarily think of the direct side of the business. And you've gone through examples that, the key metrics really around from a sales point of view. But then if you think about your indirect business and I guess what's important for the Endeavours of the world, I guess they're looking for something unique, obviously something they can sell at a premium. And I guess you've obviously still got to make sure that you focus on continuing to tell that story, and that's got to come through in email and other channels. How much are you thinking about that?
Look, the story is really easy to tell face on, right? One-on-one, great to tell our story to your listeners. It gets really, really difficult once you go indirect. And so, even going, so you've got off premises, which is your your large format retail, your bottle shops down the road, etc. And then you've got on-prem. So you literally, if we were to do the best job possible, we would literally be going around to every single bar and telling our story. And people go, oh, the bartenders, they go, oh my God, it's such an amazing story. And then they are reiterating our story. But it's a one-on-one conversation that they are then having with their customer. And so the customer then gets caught up in, the story and, oh my God, I've heard of this place, but I never knew it was so special. And they did gin and all of these sorts of things. But it's tough. It's really tough when you have such an amazing story. But how do you get that through when, 70% of your business is indirect? Definitely difficult.
I'd imagine that's a similar challenge to most at least the smaller, the smaller breweries, distilleries as well, right?
Absolutely. So when you look at one of my favorite gins in Australia is Never Never, for example. These guys have an amazing story, but they've got having just been purchased by one of the really big guys. You have access to amazing amounts of budget. So you're doing outdoor advertising, you're doing Qantas magazines. You've got access to basically everything. As you said, and I can tell you, sitting on the New South Wales Distillers Board, 85% of our members are 2 and 3 people, right? So it's mum and dad who've decided to give it all away and go in and do this. And that is them telling their story at their cellar door, or at their local markets, something like that. But yeah, it's interesting. And again, sitting on that board, you do understand that everyone has their own story to tell. And whilst, yes, we're in competition, we're actually not in competition at all, because I'm not selling a hell of a lot of bottles out at the Broken Hill markets, and Broken Hill is not selling a whole lot of bottles at on Lord Howe Island. So there's definitely areas and zones that the Northern Rivers or the Riverina or the Sapphire Coast down south. Everyone has their own story and really unique way to tell it.
Maybe just in closing, Christian, what's your best advice for someone specific to email? What's your best advice for someone building their own brand?
What is my best advice? Can we talk about platforms?
Absolutely. Best is whatever you believe it to be.
Lord Howe, 600 Ks offshore, NBN, Sky Muster, Patchy, Starlink even goes in and out and that sort of thing. So we've been on Shopify for about 5 years, and we were a primarily online business. And obviously we do our distribution, but we're primarily an online business. When we moved, and so call it 4.5 years, when we opened our distillery on the island, what we worked out after the fact, after we were having issues, is that we're actually a point of sale company first, with online as second. And so when you're in a patchy environment, we were on Shopify for that entire time, and it doesn't like, whilst it's the platform that probably 50% of e-com is on the planet, there's an enormous amount of plugins. There are direct linkages to Xero, all of the bells and whistles, right? You've got Klaviyo that can plug in, and all of these other tools. It broke for us. And so what we've done is we've actually moved to Square, because Square fundamentally is a point of sale platform, and it does all of the other bits and pieces in my opinion, as a secondary. It doesn't have quite the plethora of apps. It doesn't have all of the bells and whistles and that sort of thing that Shopify does. But in saying that, it is actually a more simple system to work with. But point of sale, it wins hands down. And so when you're on the island and you have that customer one-on-one, and you've just given them the most amazing gin experience, and you're looking at the mountains and you're telling them about these unique botanicals that they will never be able to experience anywhere else on the planet, and they want to buy a bottle and your system falls over, that's a really crappy customer experience. And so that's what we had to get right first, to then, and whilst the online piece, is still there, but it comes secondary. So, and I'd suggest that there would be probably a lot of people, certainly brands that have their cellar doors, that one-on-one contact and that customer experience is absolutely paramount. So you've got customer experience in that order, that online order, and how easy is it, and how many clicks, and what sort of upsell path do you have, and that sort of thing. And then how quick I'm delivering it. What's the packaging look like? Second to none. That needs to be spot on. But what we've done is we've probably gone the reverse way. We were online and now POS, whereas a lot of people are POS and then online second. But we had to get that POS right, and for us, Square was it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, as you say, the customer experience is not something you necessarily think at that point of sale is number one, but for your business, that's it's priority, isn't it?
Absolutely. And so getting to the fact that you've got a customer in front of you, they want to take their bottle away and they want to just chuff off down the hill, and no internet link, and the system didn't allow for offline transactions and that sort of thing. It's a heartbreaker, because sometimes these customers are flying out the next morning, so you won't get that chance again.
Very good, Christian. I think we've covered some ground, mate. You got a wonderful story there. Great business. Really appreciate you coming on and having a chat.
My pleasure, and love to obviously support you guys. It will be a long time till I do a podcast. But you guys have been amazing support to my business as well, even in the midst of COVID, when businesses were closing down left, right, and centre. An email out to some old workmates, and just a bottle here and there, can make all the difference. So, thank you as well.
Of course, fantastic.
And Denise loves her brand of gin as well.
It helps, doesn't it?